What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Soul Hoops channel. It is Jeffrey, and I'm bringing you a solo video today. We're going to be talking about some breakout candidates slash players that you should be watching from the first tip-off that starts today, October 24th, all the way through the end of the season. And before we get into that, let's first just say, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. I'll do all that good stuff. You know, Make sure you're following us on all of our socials, all that good stuff. But with that being said, let's get right into it. So for this video, I'm going to be doing it a little bit different. I'm not just going to have a list of players. I'm going to do almost an all breakout team. I have guards, forwards, and centers. I have three players that I consider to be able to take a step into being an elite role player. And then I have a player in each position that I believe could take the step to be either an all-star level player or a borderline all-star level player. With how deep the league is, obviously, there's a very limited all-star spots. So, even though a player could be all-star caliber, they probably won't make it. But with that being said, let's get right into our first player. So starting at the guard position for my borderline all-star player, I have Portland Trailblazers guard Anthony Simons. Anthony Simons last year averaged 21.1 points per game, 2.6 rebounds, 4.1 assists on 44% from the field, 37% from three, and 89% from the free throw line. I expect these numbers to only increase with an increased offensive workload. The capability that Anthony Simons has as an on-ball scorer was not completely unlocked while playing alongside Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard, obviously, as one of the greatest point guards of all time, is going to limit the amount of time that you can have on the ball, especially playmaking wise, running offensive sets. Most of those are going to be ran through Damian Lillard. And this season, with them having a very young team, a team that has not played a lot together, bringing in a new point guard who's a rookie in Scoot Henderson, I think they're going to lean on Anthony a lot. And without Dame in the lineup the last few years, Anthony has been a 25, 5-5 guy. He has been a borderline all-star player when he has the opportunity in that small sample size. So I will only look for those numbers to increase. I'd expect him to average somewhere around 26, probably about the same amount of rebounds, between 2 to 4. And I'm going to say those assist numbers are probably going to go up as well, probably to 5 or 6. I think the playmaking duties are going to be split a lot between him and Scoot Henderson, especially late game. They're probably going to trust Anthony to have the ball in their hands a lot more. He probably is going to be what considered their closer throughout the season. But then getting into my second team guards of guys that I really am going to be watching to see the next steps they can take as role players. The first one is going to be Orlando Magic guard Markelle Fultz. Last season, he averaged 14 points, 3.9 rebounds, 5.7 assists on 51% from the field, 31% from three, 78% from the free throw line. And what a career it's been for Markelle Fultz. Obviously, the first few years in Philly, they had all of the injury issues, the Ben Simmons issues, the playoff runs he didn't play, essentially. And then, when he did play, looked horrible. They trade him to the Orlando Magic. They take a bet on a guy for very low value, former first overall pick. And you can see that he has the talent. It's there. He has the playmaking. He is an aggressive scorer when he needs to be. And now he's surrounded with players in which he can show off his skill set and not have to worry about being the guy. He's playing alongside two guys who, by most consider, could also take a jump into being a borderline all-star slash, certified all-star player. And I think when in this situation, he can be allowed to play make, hit shots, he can attack the rim, and he's a hell of a defender. And these are all things that every single team wants in a lead guard. And if he can continue to develop and show these things at a borderline elite level defensively, and his playmaking can be at an above average to good level, I think you're really looking at a franchise cornerstone role player that can be what you need to, certify a playoff team, and in this case, for the future, certify as a building block for a future championship team. Um, I'd expect his numbers to stay similar to what they were this year. Maybe some increase in the scoring, not by much. The rebounds might go up a little bit, but with that team, with how big everybody is on that team, everyone's grabbing boards. So I would never expect anyone on the Orlando Magic to be a super high level rebounder or average super high rebounding numbers. But I will expect those assist numbers to get up. If he can get up to 7 or 8 assists a game, you're really going to be looking at a guy who's playmaking at a super high level. And he's surrounded by a lot of really high level playmakers as well. Paolo is, I'm going to say it, an elite playmaker for the position. And if he is being able to play make off of Paolo, running a lot of inverse screens, pick and roll with Paolo, where you're dumping it off to Paolo, who's getting hockey assists. Those playmaking metrics that look outside of assist numbers are going to be crazy high for everyone on the Orlando Magic. And I'm really looking forward to seeing his development. He's one of my favorite players to watch. And he'll just have a bunch of super cool movements that you should always be tuning into. With my next guard, I'm going to do the Chicago Bulls guard, Kobe White. Kobe White last season averaged 9.7 points per game, 2.9 rebounds, 2.8 assists on 44% from the field, 37% from three, and 87% from the free throw line. Um, with Kobe White last season, although it was a down year statistically, I would say that most Chicago Bulls fans and fans that were watching the Bulls said that this was Kobe's best year. He was the most efficient of his career, most likely. This was the best defensive year. He took a huge leap defensively. And he really was able to fill a large void at the point guard position from the injury of Lonzo Ball and Ayo Dosunmu having a down year as well. Looks like this season he is going to be getting the starting job alongside Zach LaVine in the backcourt. So for me, this is Kobe White. I do not need him to be a 15 to 20 point per game scorer. I do not need him to be anything more than what Kobe White is. I need him to be an efficient scorer in his minutes allowed. I need him to maybe grow playmaking wise. And if he can grow playmaking wise, I think that upgrades this team significantly. There has been a huge, huge void of playmaking since the injury to Lonzo Ball 2 years ago. And I think if he can take on a bigger playmaking role, maybe score a little bit more and open up the floor a little bit with his shooting 37% from three last year. If he can up those attempts, maybe, or even keep the attempts the same, but even be more efficient at those attempts, we're going to be looking at a really high level connecting piece for the Chicago Bulls. And I think the Chicago Bulls front office and fans understand that if some of the surrounding pieces around Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Nikola Vucevic do not take steps forward in the next season, they're most likely going to be selling at either the trade deadline or in the offseason. And there's going to be very little value to recoup, honestly, when it comes to these players. I do not think DeMar is going to fetch a lot, even though he's a very good player. Vucevic is most certainly not going to fetch a lot because he's not a great defensive center. And he's aging, and that value does not have as much as people would like to believe it does. And Zach LaVine will probably be the number one asset that you can move, but and even then, contract coming up in the next few years, are you really expecting that to fetch a lot of picks? And the trade market is so depreciated over the last year or two, so I would really look for hopefully that to change, but yeah, you never know. My last guard is going to be Minnesota Timberwolves guard Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Nickeil has been a very up and down player in his career, drafted originally to the New Orleans Pelicans, and then he was traded to the Utah Jazz, and then he was thrown in during the Mike Conley trade to Minnesota. And I've always been a fan of Nickeil. People were very high on Nickeil coming out of the draft because he was the cousin of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But Nikhil has not been a star level player. He has shown though that he can be a very good scoring guard off the bench or in the starting role if you need him to be that. And he has also proven to be a very versatile defender, standing, at a long wingspan. He's got really nice long arms. He's been very versatile. Probably can guard 1 through 3 for you on the perimeter. And with that being said, this is exactly what the Timberwolves need. They need steadiness from the guard position off the bench. They've had Jordan McLaughlin the last few years, and he has been just a sharp decline from what he originally was when he first cracked the rotation in Minnesota. But Nikhil, I think, alongside a guy like Shake Milton, can really develop alongside the rest of these guys and be a really good piece to hopefully a playoff team, a highly seeded playoff team, and within the next 3 years, hopefully a championship level contending team alongside Anthony Edwards, Jada McDaniels, and whoever else is there between those centers. If they both are there, whatever. But he got paid this season, so hopefully he can take that next step into the development range. So those are the guards that I would keep an eye out. And again, with listing those quickly, it would be Anthony Simons, Markelle Fultz, Kobe White, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. So from the forward position, this was one of the hardest positions. I feel like the forward position has been a really good level, and I think a lot of the guys that you would expect to take leaps are guys that you expect to take leaps. But for me, the borderline all-star, I had to say Evan Mobley. Again, that is someone that everyone expects to take a leap this year, being more involved in the offense. But I'm extremely high on Evan Mobley. I had him ranked extremely high in my power forwards list. I think he's a generational defender at this point. At his age, being able to anchor such a high-level defense as he does is something that has not been done in a long time. So I'm super high on Evan Mobley, but last season he averaged 16.2 points, 9 rebounds, 2.8 assists on 55, 21, and 67 splits. For me, Evan Mobley, I need to see the scoring aggression take mold. He did average 16 last season, but he was inaggressive at times, causing the defense to really lack an interior presence because Jared Allen is not an aggressive center. But I think Evan Mobley can take the next step. I think he can be aggressive in the short roll, use the floater more. And really, if he can be more willing to stretch the floor, even though he only shot 21% from three last season, being able to at least make the defense have to guard you out there because they know you're willing to take it is going to be a huge part of this offense. They need floor stretching. They need somebody has to take the next step offensively. Isaac Okoro has not done it. That's been the guy they've been gambling on. Jared Allen looks like he is not going to develop that at this point in his career. So it needs to be Evan Mobley. They signed Max Strus and George Niang for that reason, but those guys are not aggressive scorers. Those are catch and shoot guys. Those are guys who can, maybe attack the rim every now and then. But Evan Mobley being able to be aggressive, attacking the rim will open up the floor so much because they're going to have to respect him out there if he's going to make them pay when they don't. And if they're overly aggressive, he can make them play attacking the rim as a slasher. So that's what I'd really be looking for at that position for the Evan Mobley. And I think if the Cavaliers want to take the next step, Evan Mobley has to take that next step as an aggressive offensive player. Nobody say he needs to average 25, but you need to be aggressive. This is more of a film thing than an actual numbers thing. But I do expect his assist numbers to go up. They've been using him as an offensive hub out of the free throw line, elbow area, and he's been playmaking out of there, dribble handoffs, and all that good stuff this season. So hopefully they can get to that because the ISO ball gets stagnant in the playoffs and it can create a negative offense at times, especially in the half court. For role players, I have Atlanta Hawks forward Jalen Johnson. Last season, he averaged 5.6 points, 4 rebounds, 1.2 assists on 49, 28, 62 splits. Jalen Johnson was always a very, very highly regarded prospect coming out of high school. He was a top 5 recruit. Went to Duke, had some issues there, left the team in the middle of the season, and he fell down draft boards a little bit because of that reason. Not a big sample size of him playing ball, but he's a very, very talented player. He is a 3-level player. And when I say that, I mean he can play make and score. And rebound as well. He has a big frame. He has long arms. He can defend as well. He can play make his ass off. I'm going to be honest. If the Atlanta Hawks allow Jalen Johnson to be a playmaker off the bench or use him in sets where he can play make as a elbow guy or dribble handoffs, he's not a big guy. He's not going to be, a screen sitting guy, but allowing him to do that is going to open up this offense so much more. Off-ball Trey is going to unlock this offense a lot, and they've seen it a lot this preseason. They've been running a lot of sets with Trey Young off ball, DeJounte handling the ball, Jalen Johnson running the ball through the forwards a little bit. Quinn Snyder is going to unlock a different aspect of the Atlanta Hawks. And the Atlanta Hawks have been a very good offense because of Trey Young's almost generational offensive engine ability. But in order to really take the next step, they need a forward who can be steady and consistent, and they haven't had that. John Collins was ahead a few very good seasons, but he was so inconsistent in his play. You're getting a week where he is super aggressive, a 20 and 10 type of guy, playmaking, running the floor. His 3-point shot is aggressive. And then you're getting 2-3 weeks where he cannot shoot. He's not being aggressive. He's turning the ball over. He's not grabbing rebounds. And he's not trying on defense. I think Jalen Johnson understands his role on this team a little bit better. He has been held accountable more than John Collins had in the past. So I think that with that, Jalen Johnson can be that connecting role player piece that the Atlanta Hawks have been missing from the forward position for the last few years. And they're going to have to make a decision soon with Jalen Johnson, with Sadiq Bey, and with DeAndre Hunter. And this season's going to be big for all three of those guys. Who's going to be able to keep? And I'm really looking forward to watching Jalen Johnson's ability to play either off the bench in the starting lineup and have a very versatile Swiss Army knife-like type of skill set. The next role player that I have for the forward position is Memphis Grizzlies forward Zaire Williams. Zaire last season averaged 5.7 points, 2.1 rebounds, 0.9 assists on 42, 25, 77. This, for me, is going to be a very, I think, controversial one. I do not think many people are high on Zaire. I think Zaire's stock has been plummeted over the last few years due to injuries and bad play. But this preseason, he has looked very good. He has looked like he's locked in on the defensive side of the ball, that he's buying into that role. He's looked like he's going to be still the high-flying slasher that can provide a highlight play on any single possession. But for me, really right here, the Memphis Grizzlies are going to need some guy that can play the 3 and 4 to be able to play this season. Steven Adams is now out for the year. Jaren Jackson Jr. is the only real center on the roster at this point. And if Zaire can be a legitimate role-playing piece where he can attack the rim, where he can be at least willing to shoot, if that jump shot can come along even a little bit, and be the very versatile Swiss Army knife defender that can switch on any screen, at any possession. He's very athletic. He has good lateral movement. He works screens well. He can be that type of guy for them. And I think that's going to be very, very important for their future. They're going to be running a smaller lineup once Ja comes back. They're going to be running essentially Ja, Marcus Smart, and Desmond Bain, at the 1, 2, and 3, respectively. And if they can get a stronger defender to be able to play spot minutes for them, come into the lineup when one of those guys misses time, I think that's going to be super, super important for their long-term future going ahead. And if they want to be a championship team, which that should be the goal, the playoff thing was cute. It's been fun the last few years, but this is the championship goal now. You're trying to be a championship team. So you're going to be looking to attack, and you need your pieces to develop. And then you need to go all in on one piece, most likely, which is still waiting on that piece to be. But if Zaire can provide that value as a 3-4 who can play defense and switch, that's going to be a very, very high impact for the Memphis Grizzlies. For my last forward, I have the Washington Wizards forward, Corey Kispert. Now, Corey Kispert has been an interesting player. He was drafted to the Washington Wizards, and he was always seen as a pro-ready piece who can play minutes, and he's not going to have a lot of upside, but that's exactly what teams need. I think that's been a knock on a lot of players in the draft, older prospects, but Corey Kispert has provided immense value for this team. He has been at times a plus defender. He does have times where it looks bad, but he can play defense if needed, and he's been a really good floor stretcher. Like I said, he averaged 11, 2.8 rebounds, 1.2 assists on 49% from the field, 42% from three, and 85% from the free throw line. If you're getting a over 40% three-point shooter to play minutes for you off the bench, that is a huge, huge value. And Corey Kispert is not only a shooter, he has provided a little bit of everything. He's provided cutting value, defensive value, and he's very position versatile. You can probably play him at the two or the three, and he might be able to play small ball four for you if you need to really score. If it's a scoring small ball, not a defensive small ball. So I'm really looking forward to watching this Wizards team and how it plays out. This is another team that is going to most likely be bad, and they're going to be looking for players that they want to keep and they want to increase their value on. If Corey Kispert can provide a role and he can be a high level role player for them, then he is going to carve out a role long term with this team. And also, he's going to provide value if they do not want to bring him back. This is a player that every single contender should want. He is a smart basketball player. He knows where to be. He's a very good shooter. He's going to be a great player for a long time. He's going to carve out a really good career of just being a good player. But with that being said, that wraps up the forward position. And then we'll get right into the centers. Now, for me, the center position was extremely, extremely hard to do. There's a lot of centers that I'm really high on, but the number one position that was hard to do on this, all breakout team was the all-star guy. I think there's a lot of really good centers in this league, but the all-star caliber center list is not a long one. I think there's a lot of guys that you could see being that within the next 3 to 5 years. And I think there's a lot of guys that you just project as really good role players. The role player list was really easy, but for the all-star guy, I ended up landing on Indiana Pacers center Miles Turner. Last season, he averaged 18 points, 7.5 rebounds, 1.4 assists on 54% from the field, 37% from three, and 78% from the free throw line. The Indiana Pacers project to be a much better team than they were last year. If healthy, Tyrese Halliburton is looking to take another jump. And they have more pieces that they also look to progress in Benedict Mathurin, Andrew Nembhard. They signed Bruce Brown to a large contract. They traded for Obi Toppin. This team looks to be one that is trying to win. They want to be a play-in team or even a playoff team. And they have all the pieces to do so. I think that they might just be overwhelmed in the talent department. I think that there could be some teams where the talent developing on those teams seems to be even better. But overall, I'm really excited for the Indiana Pacers team. Even if they do not make the playoffs and they are a play-in team that doesn't make it, I think that's a successful season if everything is developing and progressing well. Tyrese has another season like he had last year. Benedict Mathurin takes another step. Obi Toppin develops. That would be huge. That would be huge. Taking a gamble on that guy for 2 second-round picks that's huge. That's just an amazing deal. It's amazing to take gambles, and I really like the way that the front office in Indiana is operating. But back to Miles Turner. He averaged 18 and 7 last season on good efficiency. If he can have those numbers again, he's never been really a super consistent double-double guy. But if he can maybe up his rebounding numbers and keep his efficiency where they're at, and they're a very good team, I think he could get some all-star buzz. I don't think he will make an all-star team this season, but I think he could definitely be in that front court all-star replacement type of mold where kind of like how Jared Allen was a few years ago. But regardless, Miles Turner is a very versatile big. He can play help side. He can be a straight up one-on-one defensive big. He can stretch the floor. He can run the floor, which is super valuable when playing alongside guys like Benedict Mathurin and Tyrese Halliburton, who are going to want to run. But for me, I'm really just looking for him to continue what he's doing. I think his numbers last year were very good. I think he had a very underrated season. And Miles Turner has said himself that his personal goal is to make an all-star team within the. So, it might happen. Maybe he is more aggressive scoring and those numbers go over 20 points per game. And you can definitely see that if they're a playoff team. If you have two guys averaging 20 plus with elite defense, that could be super valuable. Getting into my role players for the center position, I'm going to be starting off with a guy that I've been raving about consistently. If you watch our podcast, uh, Nicholas Claxton. Last season, he averaged 12.6 points, 9.2 rebounds, 1.9 assists on 70% from the field. 0% from three, did not make a three last season, and 54% from the line. So obviously not a strong shooter, but he is one of the most versatile and elite defensive centers in the NBA, bar none. He has had a legitimate DPOY case last season before the trade, and the team fell off the map, and the media just stopped paying attention to him. But he was elite the entire season on defense. He can switch. He is very good in space as a defensive center, which you do not see from guys that are damn near 7 foot a lot. Most of those guys are not elite at switch defense, and the only guy that's close to 7 foot that's doing that is that's elite at it is Giannis and Bam, but Bam is like 6'9", 6'10". So even then, it's very rare to find a guy that's this good with his on his feet and this versatile from the defensive position, and he's going to be on a very very good defensive team. I mean, um, we don't know exactly how this rotation is going to pan out, but the starting lineup is going to be Ben Simmons, Spencer Dinwiddie, most likely. At the three, you're going to have Mikal Bridges, four, Cam Johnson, and five, Nicholas Claxton. Four of the five guys on there have been all defensive level defenders. Mikal has made it. Mikal had a DPOY level season a few years ago. People forget that. Ben Simmons should have won a DPOY. And Ben Simmons he looks good. He looks healthy. He looks good moving. I don't think he'll ever be back to what he was, but if he could be the versatile point guard defender that can switch and guard 1 through 4, you are going to be eating good, especially when you have Mikal and Cam Johnson who can all switch, and then you have Claxton who can switch. Man, you got four of the five guys on the court are going to be switching on every screen, every hedge, all that. So I'm really looking forward to watching this team defensively. If this offense can come around, they're going to be a very, very good team. But that's really the main question mark. And they need playmaking, which also is going to come from Ben Simmons. But Nicholas Claxton, being able to be more aggressive on the offensive end, playing with a real playmaker like Ben Simmons is going to be extremely valuable to him. He has never had a playmaking guard alongside him, really, outside of James Harden, but that was not what Claxton was. Claxton. And if he can develop a large role on the offensive side of the floor this year as a lob threat and being aggressive in doing so, it's going to be awesome. It's going to unlock a lot for this team. And I can see that happening. The next guy I have is the Orlando Magic center, Wendell Carter Jr. Last season, he averaged 15, 8, and 2 on 52% from the field, 35% from three, and 73% from the free throw line. The Orlando Magic without Wendell Carter in the lineup last season were about 7-18, I believe. With him, they were about a 500 team. He's extremely, extremely valuable to this team. Okay. Wendell Carter is a smaller five, similar to how Jaren Jackson is a smaller five, even though Wendell is smaller than Jaren, but I like Wendell at the five more than Jaren. But Wendell playing the five has been extremely, extremely valuable defensively. When I was just talking about Nicholas Claxton, Wendell is a guy who can switch. He can switch, and he will switch. And he's also very good at in space and help side. And for a team that has your 3 through 5 is all 6'10", 6'9", 6'10", that's going to be a very, very brutal team to play against defensively. They were a very good defensive team last year. I expect them to be even better this year. And Wendell Carter's value on this team is not only defensively, it's offensively as well. If he can continue to show prowess on the offensive end, being able to stretch the floor for Paulo and Franz to be able to work in the mid-range and slash, that's going to be incomprehensibly valuable because this team lacks some serious three-point shooting. Like I spoke with Markel earlier, not a three-point shooter. Jalen Suggs, not a three-point shooter. You don't have a lot of three-point shooters on this roster. And being able to stretch the floor from the 5 is going to be extremely valuable if the rest of the guys on the floor are not high-level three-point shooters. And then the final guy I have is Charlotte Hornets center Mark Williams. Last year averaged 9.7 rebounds, 0.4 assists on 63% from the field. Didn't even attempt a 3 last year and 69% from the free throw line. Ever since LaMelo has gotten there, we have said that the Charlotte Hornets need a real big. They need a lob threat big. They need a defensive big. And Mark Williams has projected to be everything that they have ever hoped for and wished for in that guy. He is a very, very high level shot blocker. He can run the floor. He can be a lob threat. And now there is a complete lack of center play on this roster. Kai Jones was going to be the backup center, and he was waived due to the situation with the team. So really, Mark Williams was a good player last year. He was very good defensively. He changed a lot for this team in the minutes he did play. And I expect him to even grow even more. It is hard to play the center position. It's one of the most taxing positions in the NBA. It takes the most amount of awareness in the NBA outside of point guard, probably. So him learning the position more, growing into that role is going to be something to see. And I think the Hornets could be a sneaky good team if everything clicks for them. If a guy like Mark Williams is playing well, if LaMelo is healthy and playing at the level he was playing at, if Terry Rozier could get a little bit back to what he was, if Gordon Hayward could get back to what he was the last maybe a year or two ago where he was a little bit healthier, I think you're going to see immense growth from all of these younger guys on this team. And then Brandon Miller playing alongside him, having an anchor at the 4 position in Brandon Miller being able to not have to be so worried about everything behind him is going to help him a lot because he has a smaller frame. So, you're really looking for that. It elects Brandon Miller as a help side defender, which he always projects better than a straight up defender in that role. But with that being said, that is my all breakout teams from each position, the guards, the forwards, and the centers. If you are interested in watching any other videos from us here at Soul Hoops, we do have a weekly podcast that we do between me, my co-host Ryan, and Matthias. We do it upload every Friday, and we talk about all things balls. We've been talking about all of our, division previews. We've gone through all 30 teams and did a breakdown of them so far for the last 6 weeks or however long it's been, maybe 8 weeks. I think at this point it's been a while, and we'll be bringing content all season. We'll be doing a lot of solo videos, weekly podcasts that are 2 hours long, which everybody loves a long podcast to listen to in the car while you're doing work, whatever. So check all those videos out, subscribe, leave a comment of some breakout guys on your teams or anything like that you might want to be talking about. And then, leave a like and follow us on all socials. Peace out.